What were the biggest mental or emotional limitations that had taken up residence inside you?
For 56 years of my life before I had my midlife crisis, so to speak.
Today we are going to delve into an interesting conversation on the topic at hand, healing out loud. Taj Simrit's truths on identity, courage, and self-discovery.
I was living a purposeless life. I had no idea what my purpose was. My emotional trauma was that my heart was closed.
You describe your life before as purposeless and compassionless.
The light enters where the wound is. I decided to file for divorce after being married for 28 years. And I left a 12-year-old boy, my son, my only son, behind. So that was a breaking point. I started blowing all my money and I ended up sleeping in the car. I'm destitute 5 years later.
8 years on the road across nearly 30 countries. What is one lesson that world taught you?
Travel is the only way to open your eyes to the world, to the different people, the different cultures, the different nationalities, the different religions.
What were the biggest mental or emotional limitations that had taken up residence inside you? And how did you finally evict them?
If you don't love yourself, how could they succeed in life? It's not possible until
Your book and your teachings revolve around forgiveness. So what is the deepest wound you had to forgive?
the biggest wound that I had. Forgive your parents. You could get rid of 50% of all your problems.
Like you say, your ego is not your amigo.
Ego is me. Everything revolves around me, my drama, my trauma. When I stop complaining and start having gratitude, your whole life changes. Forgiveness is a holy grail. Don't look further.
So, folks, welcome back to yet another episode on the Guiding Voice podcast series. And today we are joined by Taj Simrit. He's a global traveler and author of the #1 Amazon bestseller, Behold My Soul. He's a modern Renaissance seeker who has turned hardship into profound wisdom. He has spent 8 years exploring nearly 30 countries, blending ancient spiritual teachings with the lived experience to help people heal through forgiveness, humility, and inner alignment. So, Taj, hearty welcome to the Guiding Voice podcast series. How are you doing today?
Namaste, Naveen. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. I'm very blessed to be talking to you
Yeah.
today.
Feeling is mutual, and let's get the ball rolling. Before that, I'll announce the topic that we are going to discuss. So, folks, today we are going to delve into an interesting conversation on the topic at hand, healing out loud. Taj Simrit's truths on identity, courage, and self-discovery. But before we get started, here is an exciting twist. As always, let us tickle our guest's brain first. So, which means we will kick off the first rapid fire round. So, Taj, I'm going to mention a few words and you need to respond to them as quickly as possible without thinking much. And if you're ready, let's get the ball rolling.
Oh my God, I'm very nervous about that. My brain is slow. Anyway, now go ahead.
It will be fun. It will be fun. I know
I
you will do
enjoy
well.
it.
So, my first word is curiosity.
Curiosity. Well, curiosity is the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm constantly curious. I want to learn. I want to discover. I'm in a constant state of curiosity.
Okay.
So yeah.
Invention.
Invention. Well, I'm also a master of that because I've been reinventing myself many times throughout my life. I like to describe myself as a work in progress, constantly learning new things and learning new ways to program my brain so that I could get rid of all the limitation
Love
of the
it.
past.
Love
You
it.
know what
And
I
then
mean?
future.
Future. Well, the future is bright. As a matter of fact, I got a very, very unusual mind. I'm kind of an older person, but I planned my next 20 years. Everything's planned. I know exactly what's going to happen. I leave a lot of leeway, so that means everything can happen. I could adjust along the way. However, yeah, so I'm always planning for the future. Future
Okay.
looks beautiful.
Amazing.
I love it.
And then universe.
Universe. Oh my God, the universe is so huge. I was reading that in a universe, there are about 200 billion galaxies, and they said now, according to the new measurement, there could be up to 2 trillion galaxies. Now, keeping in mind that our galaxy is a Milky Way, so one galaxy out of 2
Wow.
trillion.
Yeah.
Okay? So I always tell people, don't take yourself too seriously. We're very, very, very
Minute, minute and
minuscule,
minuscule.
beyond minuscule. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Next word
that
is
is.
leadership. Yeah.
Leadership. Well, I've always been a kind of a freewheeler in life. I was in sales for many years and I never wanted to be a leader, mainly because I didn't have the emotional intelligence and the capability to be a leader. As I grew in my life with my, so to speak, evolution, I just become a leader on my own mind to start with. I'm just retired traveling around the world, so I don't need to lead anybody, but I just lead
Yeah.
myself, in terms of discipline, in terms of, positivity, that kind of thing.
Success.
Success. Well, success is not defined. Success is when you wake up in the morning and you're curious for life and you're feeling good and you're healthy.
Yeah.
So health beyond anything, because and when like I've been traveling, I travel around in your country in India. When you see people that have nothing, very poor people. So success to me is having a roof over your head, even if you sleep in a tent, or having some food and having some water, because there's millions of people in the world that don't have any potable water or washable, water they could wash with, or food. People are starving. So
That,
when you wake up in the morning and you can feel gratitude because you
right.
have your head, you have your mind
Yeah.
and your health, and you got food to put in your stomach, that is a pretty
Yeah.
good day,
Yeah.
right?
And then life.
Life is whatever you make it out of it. My life, I always had a beautiful life. In spite of all the troubles that I put myself through, I always had the outlook that, Albert Einstein says that very well. He says there are two ways to live your life. Naveen, you can live your life like nothing is a miracle, or you can live your life like everything is
Right.
a miracle. So, from the time I was a little baby, I always thought that everything was a miracle, although I didn't understand anything, although I was a total atheist. I still believe that life is a miracle.
Compassion.
Yeah. Compassion. Well, compassion is everything. That's actually the topic of my book, and it's actually the topic of my life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in the past, like a lot of people in the audience, I closed my heart for the very reason that I had a lot of trauma. It could be trauma from my youth. It could be transgenerational trauma. It could be trauma from former lives, if you believe in that concept. So once you have a lot of trauma and you have not resolved any of your issues, you close your heart. It's very true with relationship with women, for instance, or women to a man, or whatever, it doesn't matter. Relationship with another person, if your heart is closed. So the whole purpose of my life, the last few years of my traveling journey, was to slowly opening my heart and starting to feel more empathy and more compassion. And when you start having this feeling, now your heart opens up and now you feel love. Love is the all encompassing energy around the universe. You could call it God, I
Okay.
call it love. So compassion is everything. Instead of always judging,
Yeah.
just have compassion
Next
for
word is
people.
alien.
Alien. Well, I talked earlier before, there could be 2 trillion galaxies. We are one of the galaxy in the whole world. So when I talk to people, they say, no, there's nobody living but us. I'm going, you're just an egomaniac. I don't want to talk to you. You think you're the only one. I mean, think about it. Okay, I'll tell you something that I read recently. Actually, I've always knew that, but I wanted to rephrase the numbers. The Milky Way, which is our galaxy, the diameter is about 100,000 light
Wow.
years. Okay? No, 100 million light years. 100 million. They say up to from 100 to 200 million light years. Now, there's I believe she's English, a researcher. I've done some research like a few years
Right.
ago. And with a new technology, a new ways of measure the black, the black holes
Yeah.
and all that, she came to the conclusion that the Milky Way diameter is 1.9 million light years. 1.9 million light years. Now think about the light year, okay? I look it up today because I didn't remember. A light year is, we're talking in kilometer, is 9.5 trillion kilometers.
Yeah. Yeah.
9.5 trillion
Yeah.
kilometers. So, that means that thinking that there is no other life in the universe is moronic. Excuse me, because that's totally makes no sense. There's so much space, And if I was to travel right now at the light of speed, I'm not an astronomist or a scientist, but I like that stuff. I always read this stuff when I was a kid, and it just struck my
Yeah.
imagination. If you were to travel at the
Yeah.
speed of light, speed of light is how long it would take, to go across the Milky Way. They used to say it would take about 100. Think about it. It would take 100,000
Right.
years, 100,000 years, and that was before they come up with a new
Yeah.
measurement. So now you multiply this by 19. That's just insane. So
Okay.
yeah, that's a long way to answer your question. I'm
Yeah.
sorry,
Because this is rapid fire
Naveen.
round. And last word is purpose.
Purpose. Well, everything is about purpose. That's been my quest. That's a holy grail. That's a holy grail of humanity. You go looking for a purpose. All my life, for 56 years of my life, before I had my midlife crisis, so to speak, I was living a purposeless life. I had no idea what my purpose was. And I think I started to find my
Okay.
purpose along
Got
the
it.
way. It's a beautiful thing,
Okay. Got it.
unfolding.
And
Yeah.
thank you for participating in rapid fire round number 1, though it is lengthy. There is one more rapid fire round toward the end of the episode where I'll expect you to answer crisply. And Taj, thank you again for being part of our journey in shaping the careers and lives of millions across the globe. We'll get started with the mainstream questions. So, my first question from the mainstream conversation is, who is your guiding voice?
I am my guiding voice. My guiding voice, I'm sorry. I would tell you that in respect to I live in India. I travel around India 3 years altogether, and I still have trouble. My ears still have trouble to understanding Indian people, which you would think I would be so on spot. And plus, I'm getting older, so I'm a little deaf. So I apologize if I make you repeat. My guiding voice, well, because I grew up as a Catholic, and when I turned 12 years old, I did my confirmation, and then I decided that day that it was all nonsense to me. So I became an atheist, and for the next many, many decades, I was an atheist, but my guiding voice has also always been
Right.
nature. Every time you put me outside, I'm looking at the flower, at the tree, touching the bark of a tree, looking at insects. To me, that's been the voice but I knew there's an intelligence, there's a supreme intelligence beyond that little mind of yours or of ours, beyond the ego. There's something more powerful. And to me, it's always been
Yeah.
nature. And I grew up by the sea on the French Riviera, so I love the water. Put me next to water, and I'm just in heaven.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know.
Got it. And Taj, talk to us about your success mantra, as in top 3 things that have contributed to your success so far.
Well, I studied a lot of Kundalini yoga in America. The yoga is taught by Yogi Bhajan. If
Yeah.
you're familiar with it, a lot of people in India are not. And a lot of mantras are from Guru Nanak, written by Guru Nanak up in, I don't know, 13th, 14th century. I love Guru Nanak, by the way. They were written in Gurmukhi, which is the ancient language of Punjab. So I know like 24 mantras that I constantly singing to myself. But the mantra that I would tell myself every morning when I wake up, I am beautiful, I am bountiful, I am blissful. And then I come for an affirmation where I stipulate why I'm beautiful, why I am blissful, why I am bountiful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Got it. Okay. So, yeah, moving ahead. You describe your life before as purposeless and compassionless. So tell us, what was the exact moment or experience that cracked you open and started your awakening?
Well, you know, Rumi, the Persian philosopher and mystic, said something like, "The light, the light enters
Yeah.
where the wound is." Okay, so for me, it was never like a breaking point where it was gradual. You know, so to tell you my story, so you understand, I could answer your
Yeah.
question properly. I grew up on the French Riviera, and then I started traveling around the world for like many years. I mean, I got 10 or 12, 15, 13 years of backpacking. And then I settled in America. I just married an American woman that I met in Australia. Next thing you know, I live in America for 30 years. And then I started living the American life. You know, at the end, I had two houses, I had a job, I'm making money, I had a dog, I had a 12-year-old kid. Well, anyway, I had, typical American life. I even had a gun in the closet. So, and my whole purpose, my heart was closed because I had a lot of trauma that I had not dealt with. So it was a gradual process. I was actually married for 28 years, and it was a brewing process for the last few years of my marriage, what driving me crazy. I was getting insane, but I was not reacting. I didn't have a gumption. I didn't have the guts. I didn't have the emotional intelligence to do anything about it. I was in a reactive mode. This is what I mean by
Mhm.
purposeless life. I had no passion. And I had my passion, but it was only egocentric. It was centered around me, my own self, nothing else. So the moment that defined everything is after 5 years, or long 5 years, it was like a prison sentence. That's the truth. Long term, with no chance of parole, I'm thinking I need to get out. I wanted to get out. And finally, I decided to file for divorce after being married for 28 years. And I left a 12-year-old boy, my son, my only son, behind. So that was a breaking point
Yeah.
that, it was the hardest thing that ever happened to me, but it took me 5 long years. And before that, it was brewing, but 5 long brewing years for this to happen. So that was my
Yeah.
defining moment. But
Got it.
more than that, I forget, I would tell you that for the next 5 years, everything went down after that because all of a sudden I had money because, we had a couple of houses, one we sold. So I had money, I had freedom. I still had no emotional intelligence, so to speak. I have not resolved anything. I started blowing all my money, and pretty soon I end up sleeping in the car. I'm destitute 5 years later. And then I decide 8 years ago to start traveling around the world and start opening my mind to reading a lot of this self-help books, doing a lot of yoga. That was a defining moment when I started doing yoga seriously. And the first time on the mat, when you do a really hard seance of yoga and you start breathing, you realize the power of the breath. I had never breathed like that before. So the combination of that getting out of marriage, but falling down really, really, really low, and then picking myself up and starting to build myself up piece by piece, like a puzzle, just like a puzzle, putting the pieces together. Now that's my defining moment. And now it's 8 years later, and I'm still a work in progress. You know, that's the beauty of it. I want to keep getting a better being, better person.
Yeah.
That makes
Yeah.
sense, right? I,
And also
yeah.
tell us, like, what were the biggest mental or emotional limitations that had taken up residence inside you, and how did you finally evict them?
Well, the biggest mental and emotional limitation are the one you get from your youth, from your relationship with your parents, everybody has some trauma in their lives. Everybody I talk to, we always talk about forgiveness and all what have you. Everybody has. It doesn't matter if you grew up in the most loving family. You're still gonna find a way to put yourself under pressure. So to answer your question properly, my emotional trauma was that my heart was closed because my dad was kind of always geared towards his life, making money, so he was abusive. My mom didn't, was going along the flow. Bless your parents. They're probably listening right now, which is perfectly fine. I love them. I made peace with them. I forgave them. We're going to talk about that later on. Forgiveness is very important. How to forgive your parents. So when your heart is closed and you have all these trauma, you got all these limitations. I mean, all of a sudden you think you're fat, you think you're ugly, you think your nose is too big, you think you're dumb, you think that you're not lovable. So you put all your self limitation onto yourself. On the top of now, when you start having a relationship, you start to date a lady, and pretty soon you don't have a heart, you don't have compassion. How are you going to let that person in? So it's all around you. It's all around the ego. So once you start to break through that, and in order to do that, that's a long process. Obviously, there's a lot of different steps and techniques where you start to break from the mental limitation, and also from and the emotional, mainly how to open your heart, how to feel compassion, or how to, but mentally, mainly self-love. I will go back to self-love. If you don't love yourself, I worked with teens in the past, doing some volunteer work with teens. If they have no self-love, how could they succeed in life? It's not possible until they look at themselves in the mirror. There was a good meditation I read in one book. I don't do it because truly I don't need to do it. I do my affirmation in bed in the morning. You go to the mirror and you look at yourself, and for the next 2 minutes or 30 seconds, you go, I love you, and you love yourself. I love you, I love you. And, do that for 30 seconds every morning. And I'll tell you why. It's going to change your paradigm. It's going to change your way of thinking. It's going to change your life. As simple as that.
Got it. Yes,
Does
yes,
it make
yes.
sense,
And my
Nevin?
next
Yeah.
question is like 8 years on the road across nearly 30 countries, right? So you have traveled across 30 countries, and what is one lesson that world taught you that no book or teacher ever could?
Many things, but to be resilient, number one, to go with the flow, you have to go with the flow because so many things going to happen to you. But number three, travel is the only way to open your eyes to the world, to the different people, the different cultures, the different nationality, the different religions, the different food. That is the only way. And I lived in America for 30 years, and I was in the vacation industry for like last 8 years of my career. And I dealt with people when I interview people about what they do for vacation, what they do for hobbies. And you'd be surprised how many people are confined, especially as they get older and they retire, because maybe they got poor health or poor diet. They're confined to their home. They never go anywhere. When you ask them, would not you like to go to see such and such? Well, they don't. They just fight you. They don't want to. Their ego is telling them no. They're pretty happy where they are. So basically, what traveling taught me is how to explore, how to we talked about the Einstein quote earlier about everything's a miracle. You could find miracle in the hardest confrontation. I mean, that's where miracle happen. There's a little bit of compassion here. You could be surrounded with cruelty. You could be surrounded with famine, but there's always a compassionate person or two or three that make
Okay.
all difference. So once you start to pick up on this,
Okay.
that's what it taught
Got
me.
it.
Yeah.
And my next question is like, you say you are a top graduate from the School of Hard Knocks.
One brutal life lesson. Well, when you have been traveling like myself, I would say 8 years plus maybe 13 years before, I've done about 20 years of traveling with a backpack around the world. And trust me, I have been to some pretty dangerous situations. I'll tell you one thing I'm pretty proud of. I've been to about jail in 6 different countries. Now, for the listener of it, don't worry. I never had to spend the night in one jail, but I visit about 6 different jails in 6 different countries. What that means is that I've always I've got a knack for being at the wrong place at the wrong time, but since I'm a good salesman and I got a good personality, I always manage to get out of out of jail with a free card, as they say in America. So I don't know. It's hard for me to tell you one brutal life lesson that. Yeah, one of them I was in Ecuador and we got picked up. We got picked up in the field. Back in the days when you travel around the world, especially when you start in the 70s, obviously there's going to be drugs around. There's going to be so the part of experimenting with life is with experimenting with different drugs. So I am in the field with a couple of friends, backpacker friends. We're picking up magic mushrooms. So I am not here to condone drugs by any stretch of imagination, but it's just a quick story. We're picking up, magic mushrooms, and we start eating them as we go. So we're completely like, we're in a state of euphoria, and then the police comes in, dressed in plain clothes, and they took us to jail, and they put my friend and the other guy and myself in different cell. And I was the only one to speak Spanish. The other one didn't speak a word of Spanish or very little. So I told them before we went our separate ways, don't say a word, just don't say a word, just say answer in French. One was Swiss, the other one was French. And they put me in a room, and for 2 hours, they played the good cop, bad cop routine. They tried to be friendly, they tried to scare me. And then I won't tell you right now because we don't have time. After that, we spent a whole day in jail for all kind of, they made us run, a little beating, not too much, cold shower, naked, that kind of thing. So to me, that was and then at the end of the day, then the evening came and they let us go. They let us go. And 6 months later, listen to Van Having, 6 months later, I met the two German guys. I didn't meet two German guys. I met one guy that had met these German guys that had been in the same situation, that had spent 6 months in that very jail where I was. Right. 6 months. And when I asked him detail, he told me they didn't want to say any detail because it has been so traumatic. So to me, an experience like that shapes you. And I was 21 year old at that time. So the experience shapes you as, oh my God, number one, I got somebody guiding me, because otherwise I would have spent 6 months in that jail. Imagine the trauma. I would not be talking to you right now if I had been the case. So that's one of the particular examples. Yeah.
And my next one is like from ayahuasca to Zen. What is the most intense spiritual experience you have had during your travels, and how did it change you?
Well, I don't, as I say, this is not a show to condone drug, but in my book, and I'm pretty convinced about that, ayahuasca is not a drug, by the way, it's a medicine, okay? And there's a big difference between a drug and a medicine. And I will even go one step further. I've done enough ayahuasca in my 6 months that I was in Peru with the Shipibo people in Peru. I've done enough ayahuasca to tell you that ayahuasca has a consciousness of its own. Okay, so I couldn't even begin to tell you the experience that I had right now, but the one that would jump at me is my first ayahuasca ceremony. I was lucky to be invited to. I was working in a luxury vacation resort in Mexico, and I just arrived. I started working, and a few days later, just a lady that worked in marketing, Mexican lady, invited me to an ayahuasca ceremony, private, like a shaman that's coming from Tijuana, Mexico, and her and me, the three of us. And I go, why are you talking to me? You don't know me. And she's, why are you inviting me? And she says, well, people told me that you like yoga. And I'm thinking, okay, do I need to do like yoga in order to want to do ayahuasca? And I always wanted to do ayahuasca. It's a curiosity. Even yourself, or maybe people in your audience are thinking, wow, I've heard about that. I read all these celebrities or what have you. It had become very mainstream, lately. So next thing you know, we have a private party with a shaman, which was very, very, very powerful. After that, we had 5 more ceremony every month. We invited her, and she would fly, and I will invite about 10 different people in different people's home. Oh, phenomenal experience. So that particular ayahuasca ceremony, she gives you a little dose, a little glass, and the shaman is always in charge. They don't want to push it too much, or sometimes they do want to push it. They read you. These people are like they're Hawaiians, they have so much energy, so much talent. So, anyways, she gave me one. Boom. And then she gave one to the lady. And ayahuasca, when you take ayahuasca, you better be in good shape. I mean, you need to do a diet. And that helped. And I was doing yoga at that time. I was doing meditation. I was not doing drugs. I was not smoking. I was not drinking. But the other lady next to me was drinking a lot of tequila, smoking marijuana all the time. So within 5 minutes, she's collapsed and she was gone for the evening. She had her own trip, someplace in the corner of her dark mind. She was dealing with a demon, whatever she was doing. Well, myself, I started to have a time of my life, and there was music, so I was dancing. And then she gave me a second dose a few hours later, and it was wow. And by then I was so out of it. And an hour or two later, she brings me another cup. And I look at her, I go, why do you want to give me another cup? I said, I'm so out of it. I'm having a great time. And I kept it in my hand. I didn't want to, put it down on the table. Maybe for 10, 15 minutes, I kept it. And finally, I asked her why. And you know what she said? She answered, porque tú lo mereces. That means because you deserve it. I deserve it. As soon as she said that, I went, what? I just drank that stuff so fast. And by then, that was it. I will tell you, honestly, I went to the other side. I went to the other side. I'm a humble person, but I would tell you, it was a beautiful experience. Because as soon as I realized that I was deserving, and she had read into me that I had all this trauma, all this stuff I needed to be, you could talk about stuff that needed to be exorcised, and I needed to take another cup to get to the threshold of it, to jump the barricade that was blocking us. Whereas the first person was not ready yet, so she had taken a cup, and that was it. Later on she would take more. Does that make sense? What I'm talking about?
So my next question, my next question is like, your book and your teachings revolve around forgiveness. So what is the deepest wound you had to forgive, and how did it set you free?
Okay, that is a great question, Navin. We could have a conversation with 8 billion people around the planet right now. One of the most profound experiences of my life, it was I was given a book by my friend that invited me to Peru in the first place. I was riding around India with my motorbike, and something happened. It's in my book, so I don't have time to start telling you the story. I like to talk, so maybe I want to go through this question before the hour goes past. She invited me to Peru. Next thing you know, I am doing a diet, what they call an ayahuasca diet, 4 weeks of ayahuasca combined with another medicinal plant. And she gave me a book by Joe Vitale called Zero Limit that talks about Ho'oponopono. And the timing of that book coming to me and me being in the jungle by myself in a little cabin for 4 weeks, working on my mind and working on my demons, and that was a catalyst that changed me as a person. If you're familiar with Ho'oponopono, is for your audience, the one that don't know it, it's a Hawaiian traditional practice of reconciliation and forgiveness. Mm-hmm. And it has the 4 magical sentences attached to it. I am sorry. Please forgive me. I thank you. And I love you. So you're asking me what is a wound that, the biggest wound that I had was forgiveness. I think, forgive your parents. Yogi Bhajan, which is, I studied under, he's dead, but I studied under him. He said that if you can forgive your parents, you could get rid of 50% of all your problems. Okay, imagine that. And throughout the years of traveling, every time I have a conversation with people, you always end up being on the topic of forgiveness. I always ask people, have you forgiven your parents? And I'll tell you right now, if I were to do stats, I would say that 20% of the people that I talk to have forgiven their parents completely. The other 80% have not. So to me, it's forgiveness. Because if you don't forgive something, regardless of the crime, it doesn't matter if there's murder and if there's rape and assault. I mean, that's why people don't get it. They think the harsher the crime, the less you should forgive them. You don't forgive somebody because you make an excuse for their behavior. You forgive somebody so you can remove the emotional weight that it has on you. So, because when you have not forgiven your ex, how can you have another new relationship with your next girlfriend or boyfriend when you have not forgiven the one before that? You have to, if I've not forgiven my spouse, how so to me, it's always been that big wound, having a heart closed. I go back again. The more trauma you have, every time you have a trauma, your heart closes, closes, closes. Pretty soon it's so tight that there's no light. There's nothing
Yeah.
coming out of
Okay.
it. Did I
Yes,
answer your
yes,
question,
yes. I got
Naveen?
it.
Yeah.
And my next question is like you say your ego is not your amigo. So what was the moment you realized ego was silently running your life?
Well, you were talking about breaking point earlier. I could have mentioned that as a breaking point. Your ego is not your amigo, is something that came up from also from my yoga teacher, Fuve Guru. You know, well, the people in the audience understand Spanish. Your ego is not your friend. I mean, once you are realize that you are not me is mind and ego.
Mhm.
Once you realize there's something more powerful in life, there's a net extra power. It doesn't matter what it is. I call it nature. You could be an atheist. You don't need to have religion or a god in it. You could call it nature. You know, like I think I don't know. I don't remember which painter was talking about his god is colors. You know, the colors. Whatever. So. Where was I
Van
on
Gogh,
that? The
by any chance,
question
Van
was
Gogh
about,
is it the
can
painter
you,
you're referring to? Van Gogh.
yeah. So once you realize that, your ego. Yeah, so the ego, once, we live in a world where everybody has their own ego and everybody try to rationalize why they have an ego. And your ego is telling you that you need to make an excuse for why you have an ego. I mean, it makes absolutely no sense. But that was a perfect example. When I went through my divorce, I was the biggest egomaniac. I was egoistical egomaniac, which, two words. I was, because ego is me. Everything revolves around me, my drama, my trauma. And my ego is that little voice in the back of your head that tells you, when you were 5 years old, you were mistreated, or your mama didn't love you, or your papa used to beat you up, or blah, 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 etc. And then you could do your own narrative on
Yeah.
that, right? So once you realize that, to me, the breaking point was yoga, the breathing. When I started breathing and I started to realize, oh my God, there's something more. You start to breathe and you start to learn how to meditate and you realize there's another power, there's another intelligence. Okay, this is not a religious podcast, so we could call it whatever you want. Call it God, you could call it Buddha, you could call it Mohammed. It doesn't matter. Call it nature. So myself, what I call it, you realize that you are not that little person here trapped into that little mind of yours, constantly fighting the battle of life between that you have not been loved. So once you realize that your ego is not your amigo, then you start to don't take yourself so seriously any longer, and you start reading books. You start to read self-improvement books, and you read brilliant minds teach you that life is more than your little person, your little corner, your little square of ego. Does it make sense?
So Tash, let's continue. And my next question is: you say prosperity begins in the mind. What belief about not enough did you have to kill before abundance finally started following?
Wow, that is such a powerful question. I love it. Wow, I have to read that question again. What was not enough? Well, But we live in a world where we live in a materialistic world where you always want more. You want more money. You want more power. You want more what have you. So what was not enough, mainly it was my mind. Okay, just nothing more than in my mind. I was never happy because I'm always complaining about something. Okay, so to me it was always the breaking point was when I stopped complaining and start having gratitude. Okay, so you want a short answer. You start being grateful for every little miracle in your life instead of complaining what you don't have. And when that
Okay.
happens, your whole life changes.
Okay. Got it. And Taj, this has been an incredible conversation so far, and it's time for us to add some more spice and some more excitement to the episode, which means it brings us to the second rapid fire round. And let me fire the first bullet out of second rapid fire round. If you could have one gigantic billboard anywhere with anything on it, what would it say?
It would say, forgiveness is a holy grail. Don't look further.
Forgiveness is the holy grail. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Can you describe yourself in just one word?
A work in progress.
Okay, one country that changed you forever.
Well, I have to say India, not because you're from India, because India is it's just the most amazing country. Oh, I'm a mantra man. I got the mantra music throughout the night. I play the music on a loop throughout the night. I've got Spotify and I'm constantly listening to mantra. Guru Nanak said that through mantra you converse with God by singing mantras. So I don't need to go to church. I sing mantras.
Okay, okay, got it. A belief you had 10 years ago that makes you laugh now.
Fun, you're talking about a regular laugh with good fun or a sarcastic laugh? Because,
Sarcastic laugh.
sarcastic
Anything.
laugh. With, I mean, 10 years ago, I thought everything revolves around me, around my problem, around my shit, excuse my French, around my little constellation here. And then we talk about 2 trillion galaxies. That's,
Yeah,
that's, that's a difference.
okay. And one myth about healing that needs to die today.
One myth about healing that needs to go away. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yes.
Well, I don't know. One myth about healing. Well,
Okay.
the myth about healing is that you should go to see your doctor and take pharmaceutical. How about that one? Healing comes
Okay. Good.
inside. Self healing.
Yeah,
You heal yourself.
got it. Your favorite mantra while traveling.
My favorite mantra traveling. It's uh it's actually a Gurmukhi mantra from Guru Nanak. Say Ang Sang Waheguru. Ang Sang Waheguru is let all the miracle of life permeate through every cell of my body at every moment of the day.
Okay. Got it. One thing your past self would never believe about you today.
Ah, well, I was a moronic person. I can't believe that I was so moronic. I can't believe that I was so stupid. That's
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Got it. And last one for the second rapid fire round. What is one electronic gadget or a fantasy gadget that you'd like to see or invent yourself?
Oh, I got two for you. I got I think it's called a teletransporter. I just can wave my wand and end up right now in India, and we could go have a cup of tea together, have some talk, something like that. Well, I don't have to get involved with traveling. And the one most important, because I rode around India for a year and a half with my bike, I want a little box that protects me at any given time. If I run into a wall, I'm just nicely protected inside my little cushion of safety.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So after that amazing second rapid fire, let's flip back to the mainstream. Here is my last question. You teach that taking responsibility is the first step to freedom. So what is one situation where doing this completely transformed your life?
Well, the very one situation is when I started taking responsibility 100% for my problem, for my limitation, for the reason why I was not controlling my emotion, the reason why I was taking everything personally is because I had all that stuff brewing inside of me, and I had to take care of that instead of blaming others. I came from a family where always people, my dad was always judging everybody, always pointing fingers. So when you grow up in an environment like this, very negative, you start to always putting your blame onto others, which I hate to say right now, not to be political, but it's a very American thing to put the blame on everybody else. You always put the blame on the other side. Once you start taking 100% responsibility for your life, everything that happened in your life is your own doing, Naveen. Nobody, it's your own karma that you are here to deal with these issues. So unless you take responsibility, then you're never going to be able to evolve.
Right. Amazing. Amazing. So I thoroughly enjoyed talking to you, Taj. And how is your experience being hosted on my podcast, The Guiding Voice?
Well, I love it. I mean, if you want to keep talking for the next 3 hours, I'd be happy too, because I live I live in a little Greek island right now. And I live alone, and I'm just happy to talk to people. So I think you're asking very pertinent question. I watched a few of your shows beforehand, and I laughed. I always look at you, and you're always laughing, smiling. So I know you're going to write a couple of books about your podcast. I want to read these books because there's a lot of wisdom in there. So, and the fact that you're asking questions like that take people by surprise. I don't expect the question you're asking me. Next thing you know, you have to come up with a short sentence. Very difficult for me. I tend to make it long, as you know, as you notice. I want to tell a story behind it. That's anyway. I'm gonna write more books in order to satisfy all these limitations here. So yeah, but I'm looking forward
Yeah.
to reading your book. Yeah, I loved it.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you for your
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Pleasure to
Yeah,
host you. And all the best on your book also. And
yeah.
looking forward to hosting you again in future. Thank you so much. Okay.
Namaste.
So thank you. Namaste. Yeah. Namaste. All right. So friends, that was our episode with Taj Simrit. And before we jump into the fun trivia section, we have a quick request. If you have enjoyed the conversation and found it useful, request you to share with at least 3 of your friends or colleagues. And also, if you are listening to this episode on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, request you to follow if you are not following us already. And also, leave a rating or review so that it will amplify our reach. Thank you so much in advance. Now it's time for us to cruise into the trivia segment. Having had amazing conversation with the Taj Simrit about how he has transformed his life and using Hoponopono and various other mechanisms, I thought of sharing you few facts related to transformation. And the first one is about the Hoponopono insight. The traditional Hawaiian practice of Hoponopono is centered on reconciliation and forgiveness. And it is still used in modern Hawaiian communities. Second fact is that studies show long-term travel can significantly increase empathy, openness, and emotional adaptability, which means mirroring transformations many seekers report. And ancient wisdom across Buddhism, Hinduism, Sikhism, and Christianity all emphasize inner healing before outer transformation. So the three themes within Behold My Soul, book which is written by Taj. And the last fact is that modern psychology notes that humility is strongly linked to mastery and emotional resilience. This echoes teachings across global spiritual lineages. So that's it from trivia perspective. Likewise, if you know any interesting facts related to inner healing and transformation, do let me know. If you're watching this episode, you can comment there, or if you found it on social media platforms, you can comment there as well. So folks, that's it for today. That's it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in and also for being part of our awesome TGB family. So until next time, take care, stay inspired, and remember, the best is yet to come. Goodbye for now. See you all in the next episode with another amazing guest. Take care. Love you all. Bye bye.